what they do is run to the next.
No. To get a better perspective, let's go back and figure out why do I think that?
And visualize positive things so that I can get a positive result.
Men are under the illusion that if you suppress it, it goes away.
This is sad. No, let him talk.
This episode today is about commitment. I got some interesting guys with me today. We're gonna have an interesting conversation. First off, we got Joe, we got Nato. How y'all feeling today?
Feeling amazing, blessed.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I want to start the foundation, set it off for commitment. That's a deep word, and as men, it's a funny thing when it comes to levels of commitment and things that we commit ourselves to.
Mm-hmm.
Let's create a foundation. How would you define commitment?
You go first.
From my estimation, commitment is remaining dedicated to either a task or a person, depending on what we're talking about. But it's the idea that you're not gonna deviate from the promise that you made either to yourself or to that person.
Got it.
I would say commitment is just giving yourself totally to that person and just making sure that person always knows that you're going to be there, that you got their back. He's got your back, she's got your back, and I just think that you're going to go all the way through. So to me, in marriage, that is the full thing. So if it's commitment, you go all the way through. Got to take it all the way to the end.
Commitment is I look at it as like a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm either verbally committing to something like I would in a contract where it's written, I have roles and responsibilities, and I'm gonna sign my name saying that I'm accepting what this document says, and then I'm gonna do my best to live up to whatever this document says. And so that's how I look at it when I'm talking to people. And I've breached so many contracts when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to people
That's what
by
I was
not
gonna
holding
say.
that standard.
Yeah. It's a lot less ramifications when you breach a contract than when you breach a commitment with a person, that's for sure.
Or it depends on the person.
That too.
Yeah.
That too.
And I guess it depends on the level of the commitment.
Yeah.
So let's look at that. What are some commitments? What are some things that we as men commit to, and how would you put them in a hierarchy? Like what are the priorities of commitment as a man in your life?
Being accountable. I have kids, I have a wife, letting them know that I'm always going to be there to provide for them. That's part of my commitment. Letting my, wife know that, when she needs me in her time of need, I'm always going to be there, always going to be that shoulder to lead on, that I'm going to provide financially. And then obviously a lot of that entails remaining faithful as well, which is not always the easiest thing to do. But again, when you make that commitment and, ultimately you want your spirit to be at the forefront as opposed to your flesh, it's something that you try and honor to the best of your ability.
So in the hierarchy, it's wife, kids, or wife, you, wife.
And I think maybe that's one of the big mistakes if I'm really looking at the hierarchy, honestly. Like to me, to have a successful relationship, you probably really have to have God first.
Okay.
I think I've been in relationships where you try to put the person first. And, again, if you put your faith in man, they're going to let you down. You're going to let yourself down. If you have God at the forefront, though, I think that's how you have a rock solid foundation. So my hierarchy would be God, then wife, and then honestly, God, kids, and then my wife.
So you're married?
Yeah, I am married. Yeah.
So how's that working for you?
It's we've been together off and on. It's been 25 years. So there was
that's a commitment.
Yes.
I don't even have teeth in my mouth. That's a lot of time.
So it's been 25 years. Ebbs and flows, ups and downs, if you will. But seeing it through.
Yeah.
Is
like to me right now, what I do is like I have an interesting take on that because am I committed to anybody right now? I don't think so. I think I'm more committed to myself because I think when I know who I am and what I need and what I want, I'm a much better person to other people.
Right.
So basically in my life, I'm very honest with people. Nobody thinks that they're the only one. Nobody thinks that I'm out there like running up and down the street, but I don't lie to people. You know what I'm saying? That's been the main thing that has helped me out. Now, there's been misunderstandings.
Right.
There's been things that did mess up, but I've been playing house my whole life. And like commitment to me felt like I was trapped, and it felt like I was suffocated and I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So I kind of rebelled against it in a way that, like, now it's like, well, before it was like, hey, can I go here or can I do that? And I'm not even married to this person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm playing house.
So would you say you're committed to not being committed?
It's not. I don't think that I want. I want to be committed, and I want to be exclusive, but I just have to find the right person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, I think that's commendable, because if I think about commitment and why people often break commitments, a lot of the time it's because they weren't transparent up front.
Exactly.
Right? So they make these lofty goals and they tell people that they want to do this, and they might have the best of intentions, but it might not be something that in the back of their mind they feel they're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up falling short at the end. They look like they've, broken the commitment. Somebody's heart gets broken or whatever the case may be, but it's not necessarily that you aspired to do that from the beginning. It's just that you overextended yourself. Or a lot of the time I think people throw the word commitment out there and they don't really stop to think like your word is bond. Like,
Exactly.
like if you put it out there, you really got to do it.
Well,
Exactly.
one of the things I learned, and I've said this before, is that, and I'm going to apply it to what this conversation today, is that I would make a commitment to something. My intention is to follow through or to do the best I can do at it. And then along the way, the results did not match what the intention was. And so I would still judge myself off of the intention, but not the results.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always judge other people's commitment on their results, not the intention. And so there was an unfair balance. It wasn't balanced, and there was an unfair expectation on other people because I didn't put the same expectation on myself.
Right.
And I think that's across the board. But as men, that's where we got to stand up and say, me personally, like, I can't just judge myself off of the intention, but really, what is the result? What is my scorecard? Like, we need to
Right.
keep a scorecard when it comes to
Yeah.
commitment, right?
I
I don't think we do that.
I think most men nowadays, like with internet and everything, it's like instant gratification. Literally, I can go on my phone right now and I can meet somebody for coffee in an hour, and who knows, we might be able to hang out and hook up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing, I think what's going on with men right now is that there's just so much, and there's just so much going on. It's like, okay, I got this fine-ass woman, but another one walks by, and then I'm just like, oh, snap, she's dope. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it's like it's inherently in us to be primal and to conquer and to have more. Like, there's very few animals in the wild kingdom that literally live with one animal, one other spouse in that kingdom forever. So as mammals, like, what is it that we are pushing down? What are we holding back based off our primal instincts from then all the way up to now? And I just think that because it's so easy now, it's so hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know what you mean. I would say to the commitment of the way you're speaking, there has to be some discipline, and you have to be dedicated to a thing.
Again, with the world of instant gratification, I think discipline and all that stuff goes out the window, man. Like, it's like the Wild Wild West. Like, I can do and get anything I want right now, and then sometimes when you have men who have a lot of money, even a broke dude says that I'll have as many women as I can afford.
Right.
Now imagine somebody with all these women chasing these guys who's got this money, and it's like 10 to 20%. So all the women are trying to get at the 10 to 20% of the dudes who make between 100,000, 200, whatever, and then all the other 80% of the guys are like left in the dust because. So it's just an ongoing engine of deception and greed, if you ask me. You know, greed to want everything that we see when we see.
So you're saying it's unrealistic for the higher level guys to be committed to a single woman because they have so many options.
Exactly. And I just think that's something, I don't know. It's not my thinking, but I just see it. It's what the world is showing us. You know what I'm saying? In
So
society.
if you're a certain height, you have a certain income level, certain level
build.
of intelligence, fit, financially fit, mentally fit, then a majority of the women are going to be attracted to you.
Yep.
But those men have so many options that they don't have to settle down and they don't really have to be committed. And so we need to kind of shift what the goal is for what women, or do the men need to change?
I think personally,
Say
it's just
both.
based kind of on your focal point, right? Like, I mean, like if you're based in just like material and, you know, just attaining, you know, the superficial, then for the most part, commitment is virtually, to your point, impossible.
Non-existent.
There's just
From
no
from
way.
whose side? From the man's side or from the woman's
I
side?
think from, which I can only speak from a man's perspective, so I would say from the man's side. But you know, I think it could be across the board. Like, I mean, realistically, if your why is constantly changing, you don't know what your motivation is, and you're just kind of living in the moment and you're chasing a superficial high. There's no way in the world that you're going to remain committed, because what's popping today is not going to be popping tomorrow. So then you're going to be looking for the next best thing.
Right, right. You don't have to be.
Right,
There's no incentive to be committed
right.
to one person when they're incentivizing you to be free and play the field, basically.
I mean, to your point, once again, like the world basically tells us every single day that it's all about living in the now.
In the moment.
Right? Living in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, revel in the
right
moment.
now.
Instant
Yeah.
gratification.
Instant
Absolutely.
gratification.
So what is how do we shift? How do we, or should we? As a single guy living in a metropolitan city, what is the motivation for you to be committed? And is there any, like, what is the point of settling down if it's like that?
What's scary is that when you really think about it logically, they're the only thing of, like what you're saying, to your point, only thing that a person that would want to settle down and commit is that woman is going to give that man everything that he needs. That means it's going to be his brother, the sister, the mom, the dad, the grandma. That woman takes over the whole family. And it takes over the lust, the sexual drive, the intimacy, the physical intimacy. Because a lot of people don't understand what intimacy is. People say, oh, we had sex for 3 hours last night. What are you doing? We were intimate. No, that's not intimacy. That's physical, hitting, that's sex, that's it. But intimacy is when you can sit down and talk to your woman, sit down and talk to your man, and you guys are talking, you guys are understanding and sometimes it's just sitting there and not even saying anything at all while we're watching TV, but just knowing that intimacy is there. That's the biggest thing that people are missing. So I think people right now are just going out searching for that new something. And based off TV, based off the internet, based off TikTok, Instagram, everybody's got this fake, false sense of, look at me. So everybody's getting depressed. Everybody says, well, I should be doing that. So even if you don't have it, you act like you do. And then it drives you to go out and try to get that extra strange and that extra.
I want to stay on intimacy for a second, right? So we were having a conversation the other night. I was having a conversation with a couple of females, my wife included, and we're talking about how is intimacy created, and then how is it maintained and managed, right? And so when you have two masculine forces coming together, it's really hard to have intimacy. So that's where you're like butting heads like this. Right? In order for there to be true intimacy and passion, there has to be a give and take in that exchange, right? So it's like trying to kiss somebody and y'all both just smash faces together. That's going to be hard. So somebody has to relax, and you have to ebb and flow with it. So the intimacy side of it really is a feminine and a masculine coming together and doing a dance, right? Where you're exchanging the opportunity for both sides to take a lead and then one side to surrender. And so that's what I think needs to happen in a relationship. You can't just have a dynamic where it's all power on both sides, because there's no intimacy, there's no passion. And sometimes that could lead to, I committed to something, but now I don't have this like this. When you do this, all you get is a fight.
Yeah.
When you come into a relationship like this, now you can give and receive, right? And so I think a part of having a successful commitment is being able to have that harmony where you're giving and you're receiving, just like intimacy. There has to be that give and take.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think a lot of the time as it pertains to commitment and why the lack thereof is because, to your point, people aren't willing to be submissive, right? And it's because the way of the world
I was literally about to say.
Okay,
that.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
we're on
just
the same
you know,
page.
as a whole, like we're always on our defense. Again, nobody wants to be taken advantage of. People are afraid to like be vulnerable because they don't want to be perceived a certain way. So I think that poses a problem a lot of the time when it comes to commitment,
right.
because they're just not willing to take that chance, take that leap of faith.
So you said a couple of things. You said transparency earlier. Now you just said vulnerability.
Right.
So we have to have trust, transparency, and vulnerability to have a successful relationship.
I would say those are some key components for sure.
For sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
I mean, in a nutshell, when we all look at it, we all want something. We all want to get to a certain place. But if we're not on the same page, or most people aren't even in the same book,
Right.
you know, and people, you know, want this, they want that. But I think what happens is the fact that there's a lack of communication. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I always go back to communication, because if you can communicate about what a person's feeling, about what a person's going through, if a person wants to cheat, if that person cares about you enough, they're going to say, hey, look, something's not right. I'm not feeling it. Let's
Right.
go get some therapy. So instead of asking for forgiveness, you ask for permission. But most people don't do that. They're afraid. And it's not that they're afraid. It just, I don't know what it is, but they'd rather say, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. I didn't mean to. I was this. That's whack. It's like,
Right.
something's wrong. I'm having urges to see somebody else. How can we fix this? Before I hurt you, before I cheat on you, before I do anything, how do we fix that? And that's the problem. People are cowards, and they're not stopping to say, hey, look, how is this other person going to feel if I cheat on them and they find out? How would I feel if they cheated on me and I found out? And that's the thing that people aren't doing. They're just going for it.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, we're in the state that we're at right now.
So we're jumping into commitments without having a full understanding of what that
what
really
the commitment
absolutely.
is.
And then as you're going along, the lack of communication and the lack of honesty leads you to feel like you got to do something in secret or break that commitment. Right?
Exactly.
So when you say, what are the solutions? One of the things that we always want to have in here is personal experiences, but to be able to help, you know, the general public. What are some things that we could kind of put out there that would be solutions for the way and the state of what society is, dating? Let's put dating on the table. What are some real solutions as a single guy and then as married guys that have dated before? What could people do to actually, you know, uphold their commitments and be the person that they really want to be in a relationship?
I think going into a situation with logic instead of emotion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you go into it with logic and I'm saying, hey, miss whoever you are, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what I'm going to deal with, this is what I'm not going to deal with. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to deal with it, but just understand those are the things that I know that were problems in my last relationships. So how can we do this differently? So tell me what you're about. What triggers you? Why do you get upset? So that way,
some people don't know what triggered them.
Exactly. And that's the thing.
But
at this age, people should know that. Like I don't need to be your therapist when you come in to date me. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm not gonna fix you. But I'm going to do is we're going to figure out how we can work together and how we can coexist and be in a situation that when something does happen and something does arise, we can sit down and talk about it like we got sense. And if we can't, then that's where the problem sets in. And
Right.
it's emotion, because it's every emotion and all the loving, and you got the weenie action and the vagina action and all that stuff going. And before you know it, in 6 months, you guys are all in love. And then after the 6th day of 6 months, all of a sudden you start to see that this guy does this and she does that. And all of a sudden, but now you guys are physically hooked, and logic never sets in after that.
I mean, I definitely agree with that point, that a lot of times that's a contract. So when you're able to outline, this is the agreement logically, knowing that emotions are going to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have an outline of accountability. My wife always says to me, accountability, accountability, accountability. You know what I'm saying? I was one of those that I wasn't really accountable to too many things in my life. So making a commitment without having the understanding of what I'm really committing to, and then being able to be held to a standard and held accountable for it, that's where the checking comes in. Okay, I committed to this thing. Now I'm allowing you to be able to check me respectfully. Gotcha. Sometimes the checking isn't respectfully. And then that's what causes some people to breach the contract. So there's so many different things that can cause someone to say, I'm out of a commitment.
Yeah.
Or
And to your point, like, and I think, so like, for example, you're committed to a job and then your job does something that upsets you and you're like, I'm out of here, right? So you can walk in with the best of intentions, like I'm going to be committed, but there's still that person on the other side as well doing things that can then arouse a different type of feeling within you.
But should whatever the outside force is, whether it's the job, the employer, your wife, your kid, should that change your commitment?
So this goes back to your point earlier by way of this is where communication is imperative, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're feeling some type of way and you don't express that and you repress that feeling, then it festers, it grows, and it turns into something else, right?
And that's where we bring in the resentment bank.
Right.
When you do something that she didn't like, but you didn't know it, she's going to hold that. Now she's got a resentment bank.
Right.
And then she's going to get back at you when you least expect it. And you're just like, well, what was that all about?
Right. Yeah.
Now you got a resentment bank. Now you guys got, bank starts filling up.
And it just
before you know it,
yeah.
there's no way, there's no therapy. There's nothing that's going to fix that.
Right.
Especially, but if you guys have a problem, you talk about it right then, right out the gate.
Yeah.
And just, hey, like, even if you're at a party, she does something, don't go off then. When you get home, close the door.
Yeah.
Hey, just need you to know what you did at the party.
Was
What?
filed, right.
You didn't act like there was nothing wrong. I said, exactly. That's
Right.
how I do my thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go off and be stupid and bring my stuff out in public. But I didn't like that. That's not a warning, but just understand. Don't do it again, please.
Right.
And then anytime there's a problem with you, if I'm not listening or I'm not understanding you, put your foot in my butt until I hear what it is that you're saying.
Okay, so the first,
You know what I'm
so the
saying?
first, let's put some points to it. So the first thing is you have to be aware, right? And then you have to be able to say, now that I'm aware of whatever the thing is, I'm willing to communicate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have, you said in the moment, some people have the ability to communicate in the moment. Some people need to process. Even if you're a processor, you still need to put a timeline on it that, hey, this thing over here, I'm aware of a situation that I don't like or we need to talk about. Let's set a date. If we're not going to do it in this moment, let's set a date to actually come back and discuss this so that we can have clarity.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And creating a safe space. But I think the other thing that's important too is just because somebody, like you had a problem, for example, just hypothetically, you had a problem with the way your lady acted at the party, right? You could have been tripping though, technically, right? Like it could have been a thing where you bring it to her and she's like, it wasn't even like that. Like, so I think it also boils down to being able to know, like, just because you feel a certain way doesn't always mean it's right. It's okay to express it. It's great to talk about it, try and break that down from there. But again, it really boils down to creating that safe space and then having enough respect for each other to hear each other out. And even if you disagree, to keep it respectful in the process.
Exactly.
So something I learned this week, and I knew it, but it was presented to me in a way, when we're talking to each other as men, we more are from the mind that, what are you thinking? So if we're having a situation, I would say, what do you think about that? With my wife or with females, it'd be like, what do you feel in this situation? And just by changing the terminology, we may get better results, right? So when you're having that interaction or that altercation happened at the party, now you're going to say, how did what I do make you feel? Whereas what you want from your wife or your girl is, how did what I do, what did you think about what I just did? Because now we're tapping into our natural instinct to be able to have a conversation in a way that works for us as a man and a way that works for them as a female.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we got to be able to speak the same, we got to have a bridge for language.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say. Again, I bring everything, it just all the way dumb everything down. It just, it's communication. If you guys can talk about, like at the party, again, it may have been a misunderstanding, but had I not talked to her about that or said, hey, I didn't like that, she could have said, oh, well, I didn't mean it that way.
Right.
Or it was like this. I'm like, okay, I get that, but let's try to curb that or whatever it is. But if we don't communicate, I don't know if you're happy. Sometimes when I was in a relationship, I'd say, hey, are you okay? Are we good? Like, you happy? Is there anything I can do different? I'm opening the door for you. I'm doing all this stuff, but like, is there anything else? And that's the thing, we don't check in. Like, we'll check our car, we'll check our cell phone if it's working, but we won't check in on our relationship, on our girl or our men, because we think that if they're here, I guess everything's good. It's running, the car starts, AC, kick the tires, everything's great. But if it's not, we don't know if we don't communicate. And I don't care what it is, if you break down relationships, marriages, whatever, Communication.
So when you make a commitment, you should always check back in on that commitment. So have a checkup, a reality check. And that's one of the things that me and my wife are working on. She likes to do weekly check-ins.
Oh, that's
I didn't
awesome.
like the word check-in, so I think I changed it to checkup, right? But
Potato.
yeah, it really is like you know, you say from the streets when you say checking in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Right,
go
so
into
it's
somebody's city.
you got to check in. So
It's got street implications.
yeah, it had a different street implication for me.
Yeah.
So I like the
I
word
hear that.
checkup
Yeah.
better than
That's
check in.
fair. That's fair.
But anyway, it's just a reality check.
Yeah.
And so when you commit to something, there should be a period where you say, okay, I'm going to check back in on that commitment because I made a commitment to you. I may think I'm upholding it, but you could be like, man, you ain't upholding that one bit.
Right.
So we need to make the commitment, be willing to honor the commitment, have some discipline and some dedication, but also be willing to revisit it and check in and check up.
And keep it spicy.
Right.
Keep it mysterious. Always do something different. Never let them see you coming. That's a
Pause.
Just pause.
This is one of those conversations that we got to continue.
Okay.
I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate your thoughts on the commitment. And what we're going to always do is in between each episode and everybody in the audience, we're going to stay strong.
Absolutely.
That was
Much
dope.
appreciated. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
brother.